President of the Forney ISD Board of Trustees, and I hereby call the Forney ISD Board of Trustees meeting to order at 7 p.m. I'm certified that we do have a quorum present, that the meeting has been posted in the time and manner required by law. These monthly meetings are open to the public. Although the meetings are public, comments and questions from the audience are confined to the time designated for citizens to address the board. Thank you for being with us tonight. That is our welcome, and item 2. Moving on to item 3 is our invocation. Tonight we are pleased to have with us Tanner Birmingham. He serves as the kids pastor for Lake Point Church of Forney. Tanner grew up in Scurry and has been attending Lake Point Church for 14 years, and he just came on staff a couple of months ago. He graduated from UT Tyler in 2019 with a degree in psychology and advanced his degree with a master's in biblical counseling. He's a barista, a musician, and an avid outdoorsman. Lake Point Church has adopted Warren Middle School as a partner campus this year. They're instrumental in the coordination and distribution of food and for students and families during the COVID pandemic. Their support has not ceased. Lake Point always is willing to help out the district and provide them with other needs. We're so thankful to have Lake Point Forney as a member of our Forney family. So if you would please rise, and Tanner will come to the microphone and lead us in our invocation.
Just wanted to thank Dana and the board for having me out. If you wouldn't mind bowing your heads with me as we pray. Dear Father, I just want to thank you for tonight. I want to just ask that you would provide safety over the families that are here and that we would make it home safe for tonight. I just want to pray for the leaders. We know that they're there for a reason. I just want to pray for wisdom over them and the decisions that they are making. Father, I just want to thank you for the ability to lead our next generation. I just ask that you would give us wisdom in that and clarity, that we would steer them in the right direction to give them success in their future. I also want to just pray a special blessing over the families and the communities of Forney. Thank you just for this place that you have put us in, and I just ask that tonight would run smoothly and that everything we do would honor and glorify you. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Thank you, Tanner. I apologize for that feedback. Moving on to item B, our Pledge of Allegiance. At this time, I'd like to welcome Dr. Campbell, Principal of Forney High School, to introduce our secondary student of the month, followed by Ms. Abrams Malone, Principal of Cleveland Elementary, to introduce our elementary student of the month.
Thank you, School Board. Superintendent Dr. Terry, thank you for this opportunity to present our Student of the Month, Ethan Eddy. I'll tell you a little bit about Ethan. He's a senior here at Forney High School. He's part of JRTC, and he taught himself and has taught him to believe in himself, give effort, and he understands that something good can come out of bad things. And that's going to be important here in just a minute as soon as we go through a little bit more about Ethan. Where he wants to end up at A&M. No whoops. A little bit better. He does want to major in a couple of different things. He's still not quite sure, but he's working on that. He does know that he wants to become a commissioned officer in the Air Force and become a pilot. After that, he's not too sure what he wants to do. Maybe fly commercial after the Air Force, after a good career. So lots of good things coming with that. Got a few quotes here from some of his teachers. Coach Williams said, "Ethan is a great student and even better person. He has been a part of tennis team for only a few months, but he has made an outstanding effort to be a great example for the younger players." Coach Morgan, he states Ethan is one of the best students and diligent about his work. He goes above and beyond to be respectful, courteous to others, and achieve whatever he sets his mind to. He is always working to improve, and he's definitely dressed for success. See, the funny thing about Ethan, if he's not wearing the blues, he's wearing a tie every day. Quite the outstanding person. So for Ms. Murphy, she's our theater teacher, Ethan has been working on a monologue in Theater 1, and at first he was really struggling to write it. But he kept trying, and Ethan ended up writing and performing one of the best monologues she's ever seen from a Theater 1 student. I'm definitely proud of his perseverance. And you'll hear that here more in just a minute. Mr. Lovell states that he's only had Ethan in class for a couple of weeks, but he's actually seen him before a few times due to the tie that stands out so much in the hallways. His demeanor suggests great success in his future. From his 2 JROTC instructors, first is Colonel Joe, and last year, Cadet Second Lieutenant Eddie hit the ground running, and after joining the Corps, he immediately asked for and took responsibility for making the Corps better, including a member of the senior staff and as a color guard member. As a senior in JROTC the second year, he is mainly with the sophomore class, but he has mentored most of them now and has made a significant difference in the up-and-coming officers in JROTC. And Chief Garcia would like for me to read a quote from Mr. Rogers that embodies Ethan. Often when you think you're at the end of something, you're at the beginning of something else. Within 2 weeks of joining the Corps, he filled a major leadership void in our senior staff, and he has brought stability to that team. They are now at the beginning of something else, and that is impressive to see. You know what's truly amazing about Eddie is not too long ago, he struggled with caring about school, and on most days, he would just go home and play video games, and his grades were a struggle. And what caused this change? Eddie says that he leaned into A&E, which is attitude and effort. If you set your attitude and you make the effort, good things will take place, as Eddie has found out. He is now a straight A student, and he has a very bright future ahead of him. So I present to you Ethan Eddie, our Fording High School senior.
Good evening, Forney ISD Board and members of the Cabinet. Tonight I would like to present to you the Student of the Month from Claybin Elementary, 3rd grader Nathan Meza. This evening he's being accompanied by his parents, Robin and Ruben Meza, his twin 1st grade siblings, Jake and Victoria, his grandparents, Roger and Josie Rivera, and his teacher, Miss Houston. This is Nathan's 2nd year at Claybin, and in the short time that he's been a Claybin Cowboy, he's made a positive impact on his peers as well as his staff. Anyone that knows Nathan only has positive things to say about him. Here's what the Claybin staff and students have to say about Nathan. Nathan is always positive. He never gives up when things are hard. He is respectful to his adults and his peers. He works well with his classmates and is always willing to lend a helping hand to those in need. He is considerate of others' feelings, a hard worker, and always demonstrating perseverance. Nathan has such a special gift of showing kindness to everyone he interacts with. He's always ready to help his classmates, and he's one of the first to encourage or celebrate a friend. In his spare time, he plays baseball, and he trains really hard to be the best that he can be. I enjoy talking to Nathan about baseball and his tournaments. He's also known to show a few little dance moves while out on the practice field. Not only does Nathan love baseball, he dabbles in golf. He supports his little brother Jake, who plays soccer, and his little sister Victoria in her gymnastics. He's a wonderful big brother that cautiously looks after his siblings. His teachers say that he is a joy to have in class. He loves to read about baseball and learn about Jackie Robinson. One of the most favorite things about Nathan is his smile. He always has a smile and a great attitude. Nathan Meza was selected to represent Claybin Elementary because he exemplifies our Claybin foundations and our Energy Bus rules on a daily basis. He is a role model to others and exhibits leadership skills every day. He demonstrates the same drive in everything that he does, everywhere he goes, whether that be in the classroom, on the baseball fields, or even on the sidelines. We are so excited to see the impact Nathan makes in this world. He is truly a special leader.
Larry
Everybody would rise with us. They're going to lead us in our pledges.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming tonight and sharing your students with us. We'll move on into item number 4 at this time. That's the donation. Ms. Stacy Brown will come at this time and share with us a donation from one of our community partners.
Good evening, members of the board, Dr. Terry. We had the awesome opportunity to have a donation of 48,000 ear loop masks, the disposable ear loop masks. Towards the end of September, the Texas Department of Emergency Management reached out to all fire departments in the state and asked them if they needed any PPE or supplies that they had left over in their storage. So sometimes it helps to know people, and I happen to know people as part of the Rowlett Fire Department. They were given or received an entire 18-wheeler truckload of ear loop masks. And so they had a little bit of surplus and wanted to kind of help out their community partners. So they were so kind as to donate 48,000 of these, which is huge in the difficult times of getting our hands on these, and then of course being able to receive them for free and then passing those on to our students and staff as we're trying to protect everybody coming face to face to school. So ask that the board take that into consideration. That is a little under $10,000 of street value for these. We do ask that you please accept that donation. I think it will be utilized well.
Thank you, Ms. Brown, and thank you for your contacts for sharing with us.
I sure will.
You've heard the recommendation by Ms. Brown. Do I have a motion? So moved. Andrews, second. Second. Carol, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Then I hear none. Thank you very much. Moving on into item 5, recognitions. At this time, we'll move on. Dr. Weber will come to introduce the student recognitions, and then a special one for Mrs. Green.
Good evening, board, Dr. Terry, Mr. Ferris, and audience. The National Merit Scholarship Program is an academic competition for the recognition and scholarships began in 1955. High school students enter the National Merit Program by taking the preliminary SAT, National Merit Scholarship qualifying test during their junior year of high school. Of the 1.6 million entrants, approximately 50,000 or 3% with the highest PSAT scores qualify for recognition in the National Merit Scholarship Program. In September, these high scores were notified through their schools that they qualified as either a commended or semifinalist. In late September, more than 2/3 of high scores received a letter of commendation in recognition for their outstanding academic promise. The mission of the National Merit Scholarship Corporation is to recognize and honor the academically talented students of the United States. When I call your name, please come forward. We've got some spots to space you out this evening. But Forney is very proud to recognize some students this evening. As a National Merit semifinalist, Brennan Petit from North Forney High School. North Forney High School. Very proud of their recognition and their scholarship and their amazing talent. Dr. Campbell, if you'll join us for the photo. Take your mask off so we can see your beautiful smiles.
Okay, here we go. 1, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. Thank you.
I'm honored to introduce State Representative Keith Bell tonight, who represents House District 4, encompassing Kaufman and Eastern Henderson counties. As you know, prior to being elected to the Texas House of Representatives last year, he served as a trustee on the Forney ISD School Board for more than 20 years, and as a founding member of the Forney ISD Education Foundation. Representative Bell is proud to act as a champion for our local public schools and bring a special resolution to us tonight for one of our own trustees.
Well, thank you very much for having me tonight. It's an honor to serve House District 4 in my home here of Forney since 1986. I moved to Forney, so almost a native. Yeah, I just want to first just say how proud I am of Board President Ferris and the board. Boy, these are challenging times, and I sit on the Public Ed Committee, so I'm on the phone with Commissioner Morath and the Public Ed Committee on a weekly basis, trying to thread the needle of making sure we don't have a slack for our kids, and we can get them to school and we keep them safe. It's where they need to be. It's in their best interest, and I just want to commend Dr. Terry, your administration, the leadership of this board, and this school district has done an amazing job. I've got 5 grandkids. I only got 1 in the district, and you're doing a great job. My kids were products of Forney ISD, so man, it's just great to see what you guys are doing here with construction projects, like $70+ million under budget, a fund balance that's growing, they're fiscally responsible, and you know, to represent this district, the school districts, and House District 4, man, I'm proud of it. So thank you. With that said, I want to present a certificate to somebody, and I'll, Ms. Green, I'll come up there and do it. But Barbara Jo, I served with on the school board for many years. She was an educator before she was a board member. Also an advocate, not only for public education, but for fellow educators, and a huge fan of mine, and I appreciate that. But with that said, I want to read this certificate. State of Texas House of Representatives Certificate of Congratulations to all whom these present shall come. This certificate is presented to Barbara Jo Green. It is my privilege to extend cordial congratulations upon earning the designation of Master Trustee by the Texas Association of School Boards. Your commitment to leadership and education and at Forney ISD is making a difference that will be evident for many generations to come. You make our community a great place to live, and testimony whereof I am hereunto sign my name this 2nd day of November 2020, Keith Bell, State Representative. So let's give Ms. Barbara Jo a round of applause. Right, and then I'll do this.
lot of places to be, so thanks for taking time to come by and recognize one of our own. At this time, we're going to take a 5-minute recess, and if you're one of our guests, if you want to slide out, now's a good time for you to do that. Thank you for taking time to join us tonight, and thank you for bringing your students. on then to item 5C for a special recognition tonight. And Mr. Larry Coker is going to come up and introduce a special guest we have with us tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Ferris, members of the board, and Dr. Terry. November 11th, Veterans Day, is the annual day that Americans pause to honor, recognize, and remember the men and women who have fought and defended for our great country. Forney ISD is fortunate to have several of these brave military veterans working with us side by side, educating students who one day may also defend our country in one of our outstanding branches of military service. We want to take a moment tonight to honor our military veterans. Well, we have a screen with all of our veterans' names. There they are, of all of our employees at military service. But we also have several of them in the audience as well. When I call your name, if you please come forward to the front of the room, please. Mr. John Chase. John was in the Army. Mr. Ross Jones. Ross was a Marine. Letitia McCline, to the Army Reserves. Melissa Groshans. Melissa's in the Air Force. Mark Dietz. Mark was in the Navy. And of course, Chief Master Sergeant Rogerio Garcia. He was in the Air Force. Chief Master he is one of our Air Force ROTC instructors with Lieutenant Colonel Samuel Joe, who was unable to make it with us tonight. So, but they're double duty. They're still with the Air Force and they're with the Forney ISD down too. So, ladies and gentlemen, please join with me in honoring our military veterans. Thank you. Did I forget somebody? Please come up. I don't have your name on my list. Several of you. Can you let us know who you are with service?
I'm Chief's wife. She's retired Master Sergeant U.S. Air Force.
Sergeant United States Marine Corps. I'm the officer at Forney High School.
I apologize. I didn't know
Mr. Charlie Green is also with us tonight, so let's go ahead and welcome him up.
We are all 6 feet apart. We can take our mask off and get a picture taken.
You're on the thing.
All right, here we go. I'm through. 1, 2, 3, one more. 1, 2, 3. Thank you. Thank you for your service.
Thank you for your service to our country and our school district. Moving on into item 7, reports. This time the next 8 items are reports only, requiring no action from the board. We'll start off with 7A. Mrs. Kim Warsack.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ferris Board. We're going to start with our fall demographic report. I'm actually going to ask Rocky Gardner from Templeton Demographics to come up. Rocky is doing us a favor tonight. We have a quarter 2 report normally from Templeton and a quarter 3. We're kind of right in between those, so he's doing a special 2.5 report for us tonight to kind of keep us up on what's going on in Forney with Rocky.
Thank you, members of the board. Dr. Terry, it's a pleasure to be in Forney tonight. Yes, this is I'll call it 2.5 report. Our third quarter data actually just came out about a week ago, so we're just a little bit premature. We will give you the full 3Q report. At least it'll come via email before Thanksgiving, I'm sure. So again, when we're talking about growth in anything we're talking about right now, I guess it's 2020, it's COVID related. So total unemployment continues to rise in some states as things reopen. Leisure, hospitality, retail, trade account for the largest share of the employment increase, after accounting for the largest declines as well. While unemployment is roughly 11.5 million jobs, about 52% of national job losses have returned. Unemployment rates, we saw them peak at around 13%, drop back down, and we saw some unemployment rates dip below 8% for a little while. Things here late in the summer have jumped back up. Coffin County is actually a little bit better than the rest of DFW. They're showing unemployment rates around 7%. So still not nearly where we wanted to be, but the economy is trying to recover during COVID. It is encouraging. At the housing market, so back in June, maybe May, we reached out to all of our clients saying, okay, get ready. It's going to, this is going to impact things. Are going to slow down, and it went just the total opposite of what everyone thought. And we've now seen a housing market where median home prices remain near record highs. Home inventory is really tight because they just can't get homes on the market fast enough, which is helping the new home construction. Because if you don't have existing home inventory, then that helps the new homes sell. So historical low interest rates, and of course a little bit of this is folks moving. They don't have to go to work every day. They can move to Forney. They can work from home. So lots of things happening to increase the housing market right now. Annual starts year over year. This is as of 2Q20 year over year. Starts were up 15%. You can see quarterly they're up 22.9%. Closings up 12%. So in the midst of a pandemic, the housing market has continued to churn, and this is a product, like I said, of many things. If we look at school rankings, the 2Q20 school rankings. Forney number 7 there with 1,446 closings. I like to focus on the closings because those are occupied homes. 1,468 starts. Your home inventory sits at 716 units, and your VDL is at 3129. That VDL is your vacant developed lots. Those are homes that are ready to be built on, or lots ready to be built on right now. So you can see there you've got 2 full years of growth that they stopped delivering lots right now. Now I do have a little bit of preview for you. With the 3Q data coming out, the team did put together a ranking report. I want you to notice that annual start number 1592. So just in one quarter, if I go back a slide, 2Q20, 1468, and annual starts 1592. Your annual start rate jumped by almost 200 starts in one quarter. So that gives you a little preview of what your 3Q start rate are probably going to be sitting at. If we do look at your starts, if you 2Q20, Forney started 367 homes, and 4Q19 was 403. Just to give you another teaser, your 3Q20 starts were 520. You have the highest start rate that we've seen in Forney during the third quarter of this pandemic. So you're going to see that in a couple of months begin. You're going from 367 to 520 starts. We just found that out today. So I'm on a slide with that. Give you an idea. Strong changes. If we look at what's going on, Crosby, you see where you see colors, where you have activity. Lewis, the strongest activity right now. Lewis is burning through lots of homes. Henderson is showing there with strong growth. Crosby, Blackburn, you see strong activity. That's by attendance zone. Under construction, 345. Inventory, 716. That means you've got about 350 homes that are finished but vacant, because inventory is a combination of finished, vacant, plus under construction. So you've got a lot of homes that are in inventory that are being sold right now. Where's the development at? So this is just gives you a picture. It's everywhere, I guess you might say. 16 actively building subdivisions right now in Forney ISD. There are 15 future subdivisions, and very large ones you see there on that map. And of these, groundwork's underway on about 2,575 lots. So the area where you see red outlines, that means they're delivering more lots in those areas where you see the red outline. And then, of course, there's a multifamily housing over here. There's roughly 1,840 existing multifamily units in Forney. There are currently 123 units under construction. 118 units of those are senior, so keep in mind those won't losing students. There are roughly 540 future multifamily units, and about 930 units have been completed in the last 12 months. So you've got about 540 futures. You can see those on that map there in kind of that green color. Multifamily is a market that is kind of hurting right now. They're losing some renters to move out to single family housing. So that's when we keep an eye on occupancy rates, or I should say vacancy rates are beginning to climb in multifamily. It's a combination of those persons are moving to single family, but also affordability. So we're going to be watching multifamily and see what goes on. You guys have historically seen some really high yields in multifamily, and some of that's a combination of the product, the transitional housing, while people are living while we have homes built. Our enrollment forecast, we're now forecasting 20 to exceed 1,000 new students next year in 21-22. Part of us are rebound from COVID, the rest of us, like I said, we're adding 500 starts a quarter, and you can see we could be pushing 1,700 annual closings next year. We think once you hit that 1,000 number, that could be pretty consistent for the future of Forney. Very strong growth, exceeding 20,000 by 27, 28, and pushing 25,000 in 10 years. I've got a couple slides here. You can see the impacts on your elementary, intermediate, middle schools there. The yellow highlights that you see represent campuses that are over their stated capacity and where that happens. So you can see the units have some hard. Now we know that we've got a new elementary and intermediate and junior and middle opening next year. The following year, another elementary, and of course the new Johnson. So we are doing things proactively to remove some of the yellow that we talked about in the past and kind of get rid of some of that highlight. So that was pretty quick, I realize. Happy to be here.
Thank you, sir. There is a lot of yellow, more yellow than white.
Yes, we're working on it.
No, just, Rocky, I appreciate your work and continue to keep us updated. Board, I would just point out a couple things. We continue to see some abnormal growth, and I think Rocky can address this as well, that it's not in a certain grade level. Sometimes we see spikes in different areas. Rocky, would you mind just kind of talking about that and how that impacts kind of our predictions on growth as well?
Yeah, we've seen, if you look at some of your growth that we have seen this year, there's some surprises in here, some things that we didn't necessarily expect. Your secondary growth, your secondary cohorts, that's 7th graders that become 8th graders, 8th that become 9th, was significantly higher than we expected, in the district. And yet your elementary was a little bit lower. We expected the elementary to be lower because of the COVID. It's the bump in secondary that surprised us a little bit, and that's, what that tells me is that the students are probably there in elementary as well. That's one thing it tells me there. That was somewhat COVID related, especially when you look at ED and pre-K and your kindergarten classes. They don't have to be here, so someone chose not to. At secondary, just showing that some of the product being built is now attractive to parents that are bringing kids here as at older. So I think that's just a changing yield that we're seeing now going to the NC. We're going to kind of be watching those secondary yields.
And across Texas, you mentioned the early childhood and kindergarten. It's also something we want to keep an eye on.
Yeah, the fact that you guys actually grew at kindergarten is impressive. We had many districts with strong housing growth that still didn't see a kindergarten increase. They're really, really low. You guys are sitting right on our forecast right now. A lot of our clients are is 5 to 6% below where they live.
So as we always talk about, thank you for that. What we always talk about is growth is a blessing and a challenge all at once. And so we'll continue to monitor this, but I wanted him to kind of address some of the hiccups throughout our grade levels as we see some abnormal growth that we'll continue annually to kind of keep an eye on what this growth looks like and try to stay ahead of the yellow. And we'll get some more information to share with you on that tonight. So any other questions for Rocky? Just want to make a few comments.
Thanks, guys.
Move on to the second act of the Ms. Kim Barzak show. This will be the master planning update.
Thank you, Mr. Ferris. I'm getting plenty of my time this evening. This is going to be a bit of a tag team because, as Rocky just shared, we're still growing. And we have a lot going on, a lot of stuff on the ground, construction-wise, and a lot of things planned. So I'm gonna start with Mr. Jeff Fisher from Gallagher Construction. He's gonna come up and give us a quick update on all of our current projects that we have building right now. Jeff?
Thanks, Marsack. Mr. Ferris, Dr. Terry, members of the board, it's good to be with you again this evening. We'll run through the monthly status report for November for the current projects that we have going on. Rhodes Intermediate School and Jackson Middle School. Currently, we're working on structural steel framing, exterior and interior framing on the walls, exterior sheathing, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing is being done throughout the project. Working on the decking for the second floor and the outer areas, tilt walls for the storm shelter begun being stood up. Working on masonry walls and again structural steel. So that project's coming along real well. The weather last week didn't help us very much, but the weather this week's better, so that's good. There are just a few pictures. You can see the framing going up on the left there, the tilt wall, gymnasium for the storm shelter in the center, and some of the work going on the inside of the project there. Griffin Elementary School, we're working on the insulating concrete form walls, working on those getting put up. As that goes, then the steel erection can follow in behind that. Working on the mechanical, electrical, plumbing roof as well, and working on pouring some of the slabs. So you can see that. The ICF walls, you see there in the right-hand pictures going up, and then some of the structural steel on the left. The North Warren High School Animal Science Center, excuse me, the arena's complete. We've got most of the work on the inside of the animal areas completed. We've got probably 2 or 3 weeks worth of work left on that. The Paul's building's coming along real well. Getting the roofing done on it, and like I said, we got the pins installed in the animal areas. You can see those there, the pins in the center picture on the top, and the arena on the right-hand side on the top there, and then the lower 2 pictures of the Paul's building. The Forney High School welding shop, working on putting the brick on the exterior of the building and finish out on the inside. You see that coming along very nicely. Some of the capital improvement projects that we're working on, the Forney admin building that we're in now. Of course, you know, most of the work on the inside is complete, and a few minor items. Most of the work still to be done is on the outside, and what we're really waiting on out there is the traffic signals. Those traffic signal poles have a long lead time. I think we're talking to the traffic signal company about getting started on their underground work sometime around December the 16th, so they can work on it while school's out for the Christmas break, and then they'll be ready to stand the poles up when they come into January. Smith Intermediate Paving is in progress. We'll work, should be getting the gate installed. I think that was last week. If not, it's installed this week. And the North Forney cafeteria expansion is complete. We're working on a few small punch list items on that, so you can see those projects there. And this is just the budget update on the construction manager agent projects that we have going on. Everything's tracking real well on all of those. Don't see any issues with any of the budget items. And I'll be glad to answer any questions that you may have on the ongoing construction projects. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate all the hard work and all your team for all they're doing to keep us on track and ahead of schedule. Moving on.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. As you can see, everything's moving along great. That welding shop is going to be phenomenal when it's done. I think Dr. Terry's in awe. I took him around last week, and he can't stop talking about it. It's going to be very cool. So I just want to kind of just take a quick step back to when the bond committee met to talk about all of our projects for this last bond that we passed. On the early elementary, they talked about early childhood center. We've been fortunate we haven't had to move forward with that yet, but 2 elementary schools were approved. We have one on the ground right now with Griffin set to open, and then you guys have approved the design for the next one that is Willits and Gateway. The new Johnson Elementary School, the board has approved the design for that as well. Then intermediate school and improvements, obviously, Rhodes Intermediate is well on its way. Middle school with Jackson, so that is almost completed. Then the next one I kind of want to touch on is the high school expansions and improvements. As we walked the bond committee around, one of the things that really kind of stuck with them was North Forney High School and the size and how fast it's growing and some of the core facilities. So as you just saw, we've already expanded the cafeteria. They're actually in that expansion, and it turned out really, really nice. And then the other part to that was their athletics facilities. And you guys have approved the design for some athletic facility renovation expansion. And we're going to kind of talk through those 3 projects tonight. And that's Johnson, Willett, and the expansion at North Forney. I do want to remind you, one thing we did tell the committee was that we would make sure we checked two boxes before we built anything in Forney. The first one would be student enrollment. I think Rocky's presentation with all that yellow that you commented on kind of told us that we're there with the enrollment. The second one is funding, and John's going to hit on that a little bit later in the presentation. So at this time, I want to call Kate Dunphy up from Huckabee Architects, and she's going to kind of walk you through some designs on some of the things we just talked about. So, Kate?
Thank you, Kim. Mr. Ferris, Secretary, members of the board. It's great to be with you in person this evening. The last time we got to do this, I was sitting at home in front of my computer. Just happy that we can be here together. So we will start with a quick reminder of site for the Johnson Repurpose Elementary. This is the campus that's in Overland Grove. You can see Walnut Lane there on the bottom edge of the drawing. It's actually west with the new drive. It's working to be at the north. There's a bus drop-off, dedicated bus drop-off at this campus, and then the parent drive goes all the way around the perimeter of the site. We've also seen this exterior imagery from Johnson Elementary. You picked this back when we looked at Griffin over in Devonshire. So just wanted to refresh your memory for what this looks like as we get ready to look at what Willett is going to look like. And so this color palette is, we call it monochrome, the dark brick and the light accent that goes along with it. Then at Willett, notice this site is in Gateway Parks. So this is Gateway Boulevard here to the west, sorry, to the east. And then you have the bus drop off at the north and the parent drop off at the back side of the school over here. So Willett is actually going to match the color palette over in Gateway Parks. It's a little bit warmer colors, some neutral brick blends that we're going to take a look at here. Not as black and white as you see it. And what will be nice about this campus is how much this is going to integrate with the internal colors. And so there's a nice wood tones that we'll see here in just a moment. And this will complement the Gateway neighborhood. This is the academic wing. And so you've seen this image a few times before for the other elementaries as well. And then this is the parent drop-off side of the school. You see the cafeteria over here to the left. So we go towards the interior. We have 2 very distinct color palettes at the interior. This is at the entry of the building. You're looking straight into the hub. Right as you walk in the front door, this graphic and these dynamics will draw your eye straight back to the makerspace. At Willett, we're going to go a new direction. So in Forney, there's not a campus that has a single color gradient as the color scheme. So we found these nice blues that come together, and it'll be a really unique spirit color for this new elementary. And at Johnson, as you know, that's a repurpose. So they already have an established color scheme. Red and black, they're the Panthers. So we're just going to build upon that and add these 2 colors, yellow and blue, to supplement, give the students some opportunities for wayfinding throughout the campus. So what we're going to look at here is just some more images through the hub. So as we start to get furniture placed in here, so we'll be reading, and then makerspace back beyond this bench on the other side of that wall. Questions about the elementaries? It's pretty quick, but really not a whole lot of changes other than colors from Griffin and Devonshire. Great. Move on to the high school expansion projects.
That's right.
Did you have questions?
Go ahead.
So we're going to start at Forney High School. And so what we've discussed is a baseball and softball complex. And so this brings Forney High's students back to their home campus. We're looking at our turfed fields, a baseball field here on the right, softball field here on the left, bleacher seating to seat 1,250 at baseball and 1,000 at softball. What we've talked about is that this would be a plaza that people would be excited to visit. They wouldn't just come sit in the stands and be covered by sun. So there are canopies here and a new entry that will tie this plaza to Citibank Stadium there on the south end of the football field. We're going to place that in your heads. The other thing that this site will have, and we'll see this again at North Forney, is a batting cage. So this allows students to practice on site on the fields and in dedicated batting cages. At Forney High, there's going to be 4 lanes so that baseball and softball can share it. And you'll see they have their own bullpens for game time and dugouts on both fields as well. Any questions about Forney High? The plaza will have concrete and turf. That's what we're looking at. Some trees to provide shade. Trying to keep it as low maintenance as possible. Okay. Move on to North Forney. We're going to start with the site plan here because there's a few more buildings involved at North Forney. So what we've talked about and the need to expand the athletic locker room spaces at North Forney has moved a few programs out. We'll look at this building a little bit more closely to a new field house just at the south end of the football field. We'll look at what's going to be renovated at the interior as well. The new batting cage will be down here at the south end of this new plaza for the fields. The fields are going to remain, but they will receive turf. So Forney High and North will both have turfed baseball and softball fields. North Forney already has some established batting cages, so this batting cage building will be a 3-lane batting cage, so it keeps equity at both campuses. The other building that's going to be added at North Forney is going to be a storage building. Currently, a lot of the track equipment is being stored exposed underneath those bleachers, and so this gives it a home, help it last a little bit longer on the site. And then what we've looked at is out here to the left will be new student parking. This is a grass area over here. We can look at that next time. And then extending that drive around to accommodate the new field house building. So we'll take a look at that in 3 dimensions real quick. The new entry gate out here to the east. You'll enter the plaza. We're trying to maintain as much of the concrete that's here at the moment as possible. That's a fire lane and emergency turnaround. So we're going to keep that and cut out a few sections as we can to provide some turf and some trees to make this a more enjoyable, not just a big concrete place to be for baseball and softball games. You can see these bleachers that will get expanded as well, accommodate 1,250 at baseball and 1,000 at softball, and then shade structures to cover them. The connection back to the south leads you right up to that North Forney, the athletic entrance for the students. So they have pretty direct access out here as well through the new building and the new batting cage. Questions on the site? Next, I'm going to go inside. Okay. All right, so inside the athletic, I think you've all toured these locker room areas, which you can see in the red. Is what we're proposing to come out. So over here on the right is all football locker rooms and then coaches' offices. And then in the middle, in this far corridor here are 6 and 5 respectively, very small locker rooms, frankly. And so all of the athletic programs at North Forney High School are using all of this space at the moment. So what you can see the new will look like is we're starting over on the left, expanding these to kind of double the amount of space in each room. What this is doing is effectively doubling the girls' locker room space at the inside of this building. So now they have locker rooms that are appropriate for varsity and equal sports. On the left side, we have basketball, varsity, and JV with individual locker rooms, volleyball, varsity, and JV. And the second corridor includes cheerleaders and soccer, both varsity and JV. What we're also able to do is just add a simple pair of doors at the end of each of these corridors, make this kind of a private space. So behind those doors is just girls' athletics, make this a much more secure area. Over here on the right, what used to be the football locker rooms is now going to be varsity and JV soccer on the north, with a door that goes directly out to the fields. And then varsity, 9th and JV basketball down here, and taking over those coaches' offices as well. Same concept, expanding the locker room so there's enough space for these teams to do what they need to do. Turning this, what is the administrative space at the corner here, into some additional storage that they need. You'll see as we go out to the new facility, it's going to be a 2-story building with locker rooms all on the first floor and some public space up here on the second floor. I'll come to in just a moment. So obviously we moved the football programs out here, so there's varsity, JV, and freshman locker rooms for the football program with direct access out to the field. Boys track also moved out here to this building. Makes sense, give them access to the track as well. Then on the east end of the building, you've got baseball and softball, both varsity and JV. All of those programs are out here, and then girls track is also here. So 2 boys programs and 2 girls programs joined the football team out here in this building on the first floor. It includes a training facility to supplement these outdoor sports, as well as their own laundry set up on that first floor as well. On the second floor, it is flanked by coaches' offices on either side. These stairs are open, so there's audible supervision, and then as Coach Weaver has talked about his expectations for coaches to be on the first floor when students are in the locker rooms. Primary function up here you'll see is the multi-purpose space. This green space here in the center can be sectioned off into 5 smaller spaces. So these walls that you see are movable walls, or it can be opened into one very large space. It has access directly out onto an observation deck. So this long rectangle here is outdoors. You can wrap around and come back into the building either way. There's a small kitchen set up in here to support any events that might happen in this space as well. Questions?
What did you say about the office space downstairs?
On the first floor? There's not any coaches' office spaces on the first floor. They're up here on the second floor. They kind of flank this multi-purpose space.
Mr. Weaver, you want to address the concept of supervision on the athletics?
You bet, yeah. Sure. So the purpose of the coach's office, I think, being totally separate from the locker rooms, is that the coaches would be in their office working when the students are not present. When the students are present, obviously the coaches are going to be on the lower floor with students. So our rule currently is that the locker room's not open unless the coaches are in it. So when the students are coming and going during those athletic periods, those after school times, coaches will be down there with them. Coaches that are assigned per room. And then typically on whatever after those times are done, after those hours, on Saturdays, whenever the coaches are actively working in their offices, then they would be able to work upstairs and potentially be able to see across the facility and come and go for their own office type reasons, which are very separate from student monitoring and management purposes, right? 2 very different roles. And so they're step into either one of those depending on if students are present or not.
I see your concern, but having kids in the program at Boney High,
The other thing is it allows all the locker rooms to be on one space. I think that was the issue that was discussed when this was first looked at. Conceptually, I think our folks didn't want any locker rooms upstairs, because for one reason, there's no reason for students to be upstairs either. The students are also kept. That's another piece of it. It's not just the coaches' offices being separate, but when the students are coming and going, they're coming and going on the lower floor, right? They wouldn't be on the upper floor unless a coach took them to the upper floor, for example, for team meetings or whatever in that general space. Or if adults are on the upper floor, let's say for a booster club meeting or whatever after hours, that would be separate from the student areas. So it's just another way to build a little layer of separation between the student areas and areas that are used for a different purpose. Correct. Yes, laundry, trainers, that way those things are not having to come and go upstairs. It was it's sort of a matter of how much room was available upstairs versus how much room needed to be on the lower floor, right? Students, trainers, laundry, any equipment, obviously you wouldn't want to have to take an injured student upstairs. You don't want to have to take ice back and forth up and downstairs, which is typically a training room function. You can't really, there's no really way to take laundry up and downstairs. You don't want any equipment storage upstairs, because then you're having to take helmets, shoulder pads, and baseball equipment and so forth, back and forth. So really, for us to manage the upper space, the upper story this way, it sort of almost had to be coaches' offices, which pretty well is in line with the way we operate anyway, with the way Coach Jackson manages things over there, and the fact that all those locker rooms on the lower floor are going to be locked unless there's an adult there with them. I hope that sufficiently answered that. Anything else from the design perspective? I think that's kind of.
No, that you covered it.
All right, so what we'll end on is the exciting piece. And so what we're looking at is how this building will sit next to the indoor practice facility. You can see that's this building over here on the right that we've talked about. Is an alternate to add masonry over here on this indoor practice facility. And then what we would do is be able to match that all in brick, eliminate the use of split face. Seeing view over there in this building with some metal panel up above. And then from the field, what that would look like is down. So entry directly on and off the track for all kids.
So on the picture before that, that's split level, is that what I'm seeing?
It is. Yes.
The masonry area right there. That's the.
Yeah, so what you're seeing here, it's actually a split level building. You enter at a mid-level due to the elevation change from the track and the fire lane right here. So you'll come in, all of that will be open, pretty easy to do this. Going on up and down.
Any additional questions for Kate on any of the design?
So just a couple comments on our high school expansions. We, as Ms. Morsack pointed out, our bond committee was very specific about a little bit of the inequity in the size of our locker space. We actually did some study with Huckabee on that and found that we were about 10 to 12,000 square feet short on our North Forney campus versus our Forney High campus. So this creates, yes, it was definitely not a varsity style locker rooms, let's just say, and I think you guys have been in there. We've been putting some a large number of students in small spaces for a while now, so this is pretty exciting to be able to bring equity to this space. And just wanted to go back to this idea of core facilities, and as we are able to begin to propose core expansions to set ourselves up for additional classroom space and capacity in the future. Not only the cafeteria space that we were able to pick up this past year, but also now our athletic expansions. I think one by one, this kind of prepares us for the classroom expansion that's obviously in our future if you see our numbers. So this will put us in North Forney in a setting of build out at that campus. And there will be ample locker space. That's been kind of the approach, including the baseball and softball expansions. We have increased the capacity of those from 500 and 900 to 1,000 and 1,250, which is more in line with what the build out of those campuses would look like. So I just wanted to make sure that tied all the core facilities, really trying to, when we design that for the build out of those facilities, as we need to expand our locker room spaces, which is obviously in our near future.
Thank you, Dr. Perry, for that information. I do have one last part of our master plan update. And this is kind of a unique opportunity that has come to us. And as you guys know, we have about a little over 70 kids in our swim and dive program here in Forney. And right now, they don't have a place in Forney ISD to swim. They have to find a place. Our kids were in Rockwall for a long time. They got kicked out of Rockwall. They started going to Pleasant Grove in the mornings. That was about an hour and a half bus to and from Pleasant Grove. That's been closed, so now they are actually in the outdoor facility in Mesquite in this weather. So just think about last week at about 6 o'clock in the morning, in the rain and in the cold, they were outside getting in a pool, which was heated, which was good, but it wasn't when they got out. So right now we don't even have a place for our divers to practice. And last year we had 5 divers go to state and 2 make it to the state finals. That's pretty impressive without a pool. Last year, the Forney High School boys and girls were district champions in swim, and North Forney were the runners-up. Pretty impressive without a pool. You know, our afternoon group, which is our more beginner swimmers, if you will, in our program, they just finally got in a pool 1 month ago today. It's the first time this school year they've even been able to get swim time. So we've actually kind of fallen into a really unique opportunity where we think we might be able to put a fairly small pool here in Forney. And this is just kind of a schematic for you that shows what we're talking about. Nothing fancy. It's a 11-lane pool with the potential to have a separated learn to swim area that you know, beginning swimmers could go into. I'll talk about some other opportunities maybe for that area. Just a little bit of public showers and our locker rooms, no showers, and a place for our kids, a little locker room for them to get dressed and changed. Like I said, nothing fancy. It shows some bleachers, but those would actually not even be mounted bleachers. That would be deck area that we could bring bleachers into if we ever needed it. So the question kind of is, why can we do this now when we haven't ever been able to do this? And originally when we talked about a pool in Forney, we were talking about a tens of millions of dollar build for an auditorium with a huge amount of operating costs every year that we just didn't think we'd be able to sustain. Lovejoy has built a pool, an above ground pool actually, in a bubble, and it was very small. It's a little training pool, but they've had great success with it. And they've partnered with a group that we're actually talking to right now, and that group is talking to us about coming in and completely managing the pool and running the pool at little to no cost to Forney ISD. That includes utilities, cleaning, lifeguards, any operations that aren't directly related to the school, and basically allowing that opportunity to be afforded to us. This wouldn't be a fancy build. It'd be a smaller, very efficient model. We would do a solid glass structure is what we're proposing. But it would really meet the needs, allow us to have a diving facility, 11-lane swimming facility, and give the public some opportunity to get into a pool as well. The company we're kind of talking to runs club swimming programs. So a club program just builds up the Forney ISD program. They also do swim lessons. They do summer programs. But then looking at the demand in the area and the time that would be available in the pool, we could also do deep water and shallow water aerobics, rehabilitation, lifeguard training. The military is always looking for a pool for them to do train the swim test for the Navy. So a lot of opportunities that could come not just to Forney ISD but to the public with this type of facility. And the good news is we pay cash for it. This would not be part of the bond. This would be a cash project. So kind of exciting to talk about. And so that's just another really cool opportunity that we think we can bring to Forney ISD. And that actually concludes the master planning update.
Thank you, Ms. Morsack. I appreciate all the information you shared with us tonight and your guests that came. So thank you all for being part of this. Well, moving on into item D, our monthly financial report.
One more out of the District of Innovation report.
You said you concluded, so I'll touch.
That's just that portion of my show. I'll go very quickly through this. As you guys know, for the past 5 years, Forney ISD has been a school district with a District of Innovation plan. Our plan expires, and it says March, but that is actually a typo on my part. It's actually December of 2021. We adopted in December of 2016. I don't know where I got March, month's not really my thing, but our current plan had four, in 2016 we adopted it, had 4 areas that we exempted out of. That was teacher certification, first and last day of instruction, which allows us to have the innovative calendar that we have, the use of a behavior coordinator, and then teacher probationary contract with, just to remind you on that one, we extended the length of time that someone can be on probationary contracts, just to give us a little more flexibility here in Forney. Back at the beginning of the school year, you guys went ahead and added 2 more things because of COVID-19, and that's teacher duty-free lunch and class size. So really we have 6 items on our current District of Innovation plan. We are actually considering right now, the only 2 other areas that the committee has even talked about considering are reading academies and the minimum average grade with, and just to give you a little bit of background on that, the state has initiated some reading academy expectations, and we think they're an excellent, excellent idea. But there's some very stringent timelines and some cost involved that we would like to kind of look at, maybe implementing the Forney way of these reading academies in that area. And then about 5-10 years ago, there were rules in place in school districts that a teacher could not give a grade lower than a 50. And that is no longer something that can happen. And so our high school principals have asked that we look at maybe not putting in a 50, but putting in some sort of minimum grade a child can earn. And I'll just give you an example right now of COVID. We have some kids who aren't doing very well. Their parents have kept them home. And if they were to get a 0 or a 10 or a 15, they would never be able to recover from that. But a grade of a 50, with some hard work and making up that lost learning, you can actually recover and still get your credit for the class. And so the committee is looking at that to determine if that's something we want to look at in Forney. Unlike the last time where you guys had to do a board resolution, TEA actually says that if we want to amend or renew our innovation plan, the committee can actually vote to do that. And we did have a vote last Wednesday night at our first meeting, and they voted unanimously to go ahead and look at the renewal of our local innovation plan to continue as a district of innovation. So this is just a quick little timeline of kind of where we are. As I said last Wednesday at the DOI meeting, they voted to renew the plan. Tonight is November 2nd, kind of letting you guys know that they have decided to move forward with the renewal of the plan. We'll meet again the next 2 weeks as a DOI. If we can come to an approval with a draft, we will present that to you on the 17th, the November 17th meeting. If the committee hasn't come to a draft at that point in time, we'll push it back to the December meeting. Once that has been received by the board and approved, we'll post it on the website, notify the commissioner of our plan, and move forward with our DOI. So that concludes this report unless there are any questions.
I'd be amiss not to make one statement here, that as soon as possible, as soon as we can relieve some of the burden on our teachers, their duty-free lunch will return. And so I want to make sure that's very clear, that although we are so blessed that our teachers have taken this on and enjoyed a little bit of their lunch with their kids, I'm sure they'd like to have that back, and we would like to give that back to them. So as soon as possible, that will go back into play.
Thank you, Dr. Terry. And our teachers on the committee would agree with Dr. Terry. None of us like that we have to do that right now. We're all ready to get the kids back. So, awesome. Any other questions?
We'll move on to the item D, Mr. Chase, a financial report and quarterly investment report.
Thank you, Mr. Ferris. The activity for the month of September is included in your board book. The collections for the month was 12.7 million. Expenditures for the month was 11.3 million. Year-to-date expenditures was 28 million, or 13%, excuse me, of the amount appropriated. Year-to-date expenditures was 27.9 million, or 24% of the amount appropriated. So both these percentages were pretty much in line with where we were at the same point in time last year. I think we were 11% and 23% last year, so we're right in line with where we figure we should be at this time of year. So moving on to the debt service side, collections for the month was 19 million. Expenditures for the month were 18, right at 19 million as well. Year-to-date revenue and other resources recognized was 19.2 million, or 41% of the amount estimated, and then the expenditures were 37.5 million, or 84% of the amount appropriated. Now, I would say most of the activity in the month of September were related to the bond refunding transaction that we had back in September, that we married up with the new money issue that we did for 20 million to keep the Griffin and the Rose and Jackson projects moving along. In our refunding, it was a savings of 7.1 million for future cash savings on the deal. So a very good deal for the district with lower interest rates, as you might imagine. But if you strip all that out and compare the activity where we're at this time of year, last year we were at 1% of the amount of revenue collected compared to estimated, and 71% of expenditures compared to appropriations. And so, now again, if you strip all that out, we're about 1% and 73%. So we're pretty much right on track with debt service as well. So moving on to the cash and investments on hand, we had 101, almost 102 million in cash and investments in the general fund, food service, and debt service fund. Would point out that the food service fund, you'll notice that we're actually in a deficit cash flow. I mean, it's shared the same bank account as our general fund, so it's not, we're basically loaning the money out of the general fund in order to keep it going. But our food service sales, as you might imagine, with the coronavirus, are a little lower than they would be this time of year. We're serving breakfast and lunch in the classrooms, and a lot of the kids are bringing their lunch as a consequence of that, and we're having limited a la carte items that we can offer as well, just because of the logistics that's required to serve in the classroom versus going down there and eating in the cafeteria itself. That said, I think you've already been notified of this, but we recently received a waiver from the Department of Agriculture where we're going to be able to provide all students in our district, regardless of their family income status, a free breakfast and lunch should they choose to eat it, and it started today. And so we're hoping that federal revenue will pick up as a consequence of that, and hopefully mitigate some of the lower sales that we have in the food service program right now. But I would just put this out that it's very likely at the end of the year that we are going to have to supplement the food service budget because we're not going to make our revenue estimate, and it could be as high as $900,000. But we're hoping again with the additional federal revenues that we're going to get through the free breakfast and lunches for all students that we can recover at least some of that before the end of the year. And if the vaccine comes out and things speed up in the spring and that we're able to start having normal food service operations again, I don't think it's likely, but if it does, that number could definitely go lower than that. But that's the financial report. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I've got one question. How are we communicated the free lunch and free breakfast to the community?
So Dr. Terry did a Facebook Live presentation, I think, on Friday. Larry Coker, I believe, sent out some blasts out to the parents as well, notifying them of that, and I think it's posted on our website as well. I don't know if there's any other venues that we've done that so far, but that's the three that I know of.
Yeah, John's correct, but we sent that out Friday to all parents. we will work on social media distribution. Correct, Larry? I think that's going out Tuesday or Wednesday of this week. We honestly, operationally, that is a pretty big change for us to go from a very few that were delivering classes to an unknown. So this slow rollout of information a little bit, was that intentional to start internal and then to begin to spread that out to ensure that we can slow ramp up our operations as well for food prep.
Now, it'll be done through hauling carts in classrooms?
Correct, we're still
Yes,
doing
sir.
all the food services done in class.
Correct.
Now, I would say it is, one thing that it is changing, and it's not really affecting a lot of folks right now because we didn't really have a lot of participation, but we had all of our campuses were grab and go sites for any of the kids that wanted to pick up a meal. If they were learning from home, for the virtual kids, they were allowed to come up there and do that. With this change to, everyone gets the opportunity to get a free breakfast or lunch regardless of income status. We were only allowed to do the grab and go at one site, and that's at Blackburn Elementary. So anybody that's a virtual student that wants to take advantage of a free grab and go breakfast and lunch, they have to go to Blackburn in order to get it. But we really only had maybe 80 kids a day taking advantage across the whole district for that anyway. And I think today, I talked to Ms. Money, I think we had a few show up at Pointy High School. We went ahead and gave them the meal then and just gave them the information and told them where they needed to go, in the future to get them. But that's the major change that we got over what we were doing from before.
Just a follow-up to that is the grant money that we're getting, it offsets just the cost of the food. It doesn't affect the labor that you're incurring to deliver the food, correct?
No, sir. What the Federal Department of Agriculture, that they give us, I believe the subsidy is $3.60 or 80 cents a meal, and so you figure the food cost on that's maybe $1.50, $1.80, somewhere in there. So it's more than enough to cover the well, I say that it usually is based on normal feeding patterns, but with a full cadre of staff, it depends on what the total numbers of meals that we're selling or getting reimbursed for, whether it covers all of our labor or not. That remains to be seen how much participation is going to pick up from this. But our hope is it will pick up at least quite a bit, so we can at least hopefully get closer to breaking our food service program even. I mean, I don't think it's going to happen, but at least it'll be better than it was.
Okay. So I just want to say something, I guess, but this is something every district can get, correct? Something we went outside and were able to get secured for our district.
So we know of a few school districts that did receive this. I do not believe that every district has applied and received that. I believe the deadline was this week. Right, John?
I think it may have been even last Thursday or
Friday.
Friday. But we had all our food service staff working their tail off to get it in and get it all approved, and they did, and they really deserve a lot of credit for getting that all lined out. But the other thing that I forgot to say is that it's not just our students that can participate in this. If we have homeschoolers or kids that are even under the age of 5 years old that aren't in school yet, they can all go to Blackburn and pick up a meal if they so choose in our community, and we'll get a reimbursement for it.
So it's a huge win for our kids in our community, right? We should celebrate that. That's pretty awesome. Yeah. Well done.
That's like I said, that's the financial report, and I'll just move on to the investment report. Our cash and investments again on hand at the end of September was almost $103 million. That was on deposit either at our depository at Citibank or one of 3 investment pools, as you can see there on the left-hand side. Interest rates, they're not very good right now. I mean, it's good if you're borrowing money, but it's not good if you've got money that you got on deposit and you want to earn interest income on. But we were making as little as 0.18, less than 0.2% basically, to as high as 0.65 that we're getting at Citibank right now. And they're giving us a little bit more at Citibank, a little higher than what the market generally yields for those demand deposit accounts based on the contract that we have in place with them. You can only get a certain amount collateralized with them. I mean, because it is a depository institution, FDIC insurance only covers $200,000 worth of deposits on hand. And so what they do in order, because it's a public funds, they have to pledge collateral to us. Should the bank go under, then that collateral belongs to us and we'll get all of our money back. But so, I mean, you know, ideally, we try to keep every last nickel we could over there and maximize all the interest we could out of that rate. But again, you know, we think we've got maybe $8-10 million of collateral that we've got pledged to us. And, you know, our cash, you know, deposits fluctuate daily there because of, you know, checks clearing and that kind of thing. It's kind of a juggling act. But anyway, the total cash or total interest income for the quarter is $102,000, and you know, $102 million. That's not very much. So again, the interest rates are low. It's good when we're borrowing money, but not great again for money that's on deposit. But if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Chase. Appreciate that very much. Moving on to item G then, our board goals.
The final one we had on here, sorry, Mr. Ferris, is the quarterly tax collection report. I didn't go through that one yet. Just real quick, we had about 76 or so. The tax levy, I don't know if exactly, it's going to fluctuate a little bit because those tax bills didn't go out until October, and this is as of September. But that's pretty close estimate of what our collection or our levy will be for the month or for the year. I mean, we didn't collect anything currently. Obviously, we didn't have the tax bills out yet at this point. But we for the quarter we collected $545,000 in delinquent taxes, which is about 0.7% of our levy. Last year at this same point in time, we were about 0.7, and our 5-year average or so is around just about 230,000 at this same point in time. So we're pretty close, tracking pretty close to where we were at this point of the year. And again, that's about 15.2% increase in our property values year over year. So as you know, we've had really stout growth the last 3 or 4 years, 4, almost 5, I guess. It's been double digits. So a lot going on in the district, and as you might imagine, our values are going to track along with it. So that's the tax collection report. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions? Ms. Rader, Director of Elementary Learning.
Good evening, School Board, Dr. Terry, and thank you for the opportunity to provide an update on our early literacy board goals. To get started, I just want to show the slide that was presented back in June. So part of Hospital 3 really focused on early literacy and ensuring that by the year 2024, 60% of our students in 3rd grade are at the MEETS level on their STAR assessment. Just want to point out that the 2020 data is actually our 2018 data or 19 data because we were unable to take a STAR test last year. So if our benchmark from last year had been accounted, these scores would be slightly higher to start out in that 2020 column. After these goals were presented by Dr. Weber, we met with each campus principal so that they could establish goals for their campuses. Part of Hospital 3 tasked us with implementing a new reading instrument for pre-K through 2nd grade. And so the next couple of slides will show you how we plan to progress monitor those students to ensure that by 2024 we meet that goal of 60% in 3rd grade. Most of the research by TEA centered on the quote on the screen that 3rd grade is a critical year for reading, and we know that when students aren't on level at that point, there's a huge opportunity for them to fall through the cracks. So a couple of the assessments that we used to set these progress measures were CLI Engage, which was new to us this year, the Developmental Reading Assessment, and then the new STAR Interim. By grade level, you can see which assessment we selected and the measure for each student in that grade level. Please note that the asterisk shows the assessments that were new this school year. So in kindergarten, 1st grade, and 3rd grade, we have implemented new assessments, both face-to-face and for our virtual students. Something you might have noticed in your workbook before tonight is the beginning of year goal is much lower than some of our end of year targets. 2020 was the year that we needed to establish these goals. However, TEA provided the reading assessment at the start of this school year. So when I show you the progress measures for the district and each campus, please note that 2020 is our current beginning of year data, and the rest of the goals will look at our end of year projections. We'll start with the first progress measure to ensure that we're meeting that end grade goal for third grade. Pre-K is currently at Crosby and Lewis. We know these goals might need to change as we move students from campus to campus, but right now we're going to look at phonological awareness in pre-kindergarten to ensure that our students can orally manipulate and identify sounds. In kindergarten, we are going to look at the skill of blending so that students can take individual phonemes and begin to decode words. You can see that we are hoping for 90% of our students to be able to do that because it is a grade level readiness standard. In first grade, we'll utilize the TPRI assessment, and we are looking at measuring our students on reading grade level words, and we hope to be at 89% as a district, and you can see the breakdown by campus. In second grade, we move from isolated skills to a reading level. So that reading level takes into account a student's ability to accurately decode a text, their rate of fluency, and their comprehension on a text. We know that being on reading level is a critical factor in getting to meets in third grade, and so we set that bar pretty high, and we know it's going to take some work and some help for our students and teachers to get there. The last progress measure goal that we will continue to update you on is for our Spanish-speaking students in our dual language program. We set goals in pre-K through second because many of those students, by the time they reach third grade, they're taking the English STAR test, so they're included in that overall board goal. We will update you periodically throughout the year by district and campus to let you know who's on track, anyone that's slightly off track, and we will use the data from the assessments that are given mostly at the beginning, middle, and end of each school year. This year in third grade, we are taking interim STAR testing in November and March, so that will provide some other points of data to share with you along the way. And lastly, we know that our teachers at the district level and at their campus will need support in getting our students to these levels in reading. So something that you'll hear a lot about in the future are these reading academies that we are putting a lot of work into creating. They're based on the science of teaching reading and what research tells us about how students learn how to read. And then I'm working with campus administrators to help them create professional development plans for their campus based on this data that's coming in from their students. With all that information, please let me know if you have any questions.
Any questions from the board? Those professional development plans, just curious, is that common with most districts or is it unique to Forney?
Probably a combination answer. So our principals spend a lot of time in the summer preparing for their professional development throughout the school year. It just hasn't been targeted at the district level in a lot of places, and that was part of the requirements from House Bill 3 that we do that not only from a district level but also at the campus to get that cohesiveness. All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on into item H, our safety audit. Mr. Rick Gear, Chief of Human Services.
Thank you, Mr. Ferris, Dr. Terry, School Board. As you may know already, is that every 3 years in the state of Texas, all school districts must undergo a safety audit and report that back to the Texas School Safety Center per section 37.108 of the Texas Education Code. So actually they extended it a little bit this year due to the pandemic. And so but we were already in the process of working with the Craig Miller Group, who actually assisted us in that evaluation. The purpose of the audit is kind of threefold, is to identify the safety and security practices and policies of our district. It also identifies the specific needs of each campus, and it makes recommendations to create the safest environment possible. The Craig Miller Group, along with Craig Miller, who I think you guys have met, he was very instrumental in helping us begin our ISD police force here recently. But Craig and his partner, Lee Smith, actually spent an extensive amount of time kind of exploring and viewing our campuses, visiting with our administrative staff on campuses, looking at the grounds. They even did a threat risk assessment. They actually tried to get into several of our campuses and kind of the secret shopper. To my dismay, they were a little bit more successful than I would have liked. But they seemed to actually visited and obviously gave the campuses feedback, which I think will be instrumental in us moving forward with safer campuses. So we appreciate Craig and his help. Some of the commendations that actually, and I kind of wanted, as I was looking back from our last audit that we completed in 2017, and started reviewing back what we actually implemented. This was as a result of that 2017 audit, but it's also a result of our Safety and Security Committee, some of the things that have come out of that group as well. But I started listing these out and I said, oh my goodness, we were busy. So Forney ISD Police Department, as I know, has been obviously added another layer of safety and personalized services for our district. We've upped our security officers at our high school, which now we currently have 6 security officers working for us with United Protective Services, contracting that out. As I mentioned, our safety committee very, very heavily involved in some of these decisions. We collaborate with our first responders. We have several people that actually, of our Forney PD, our Kaufman Sheriff's Office, our Constable's Office, that actually join with us on the safety committee. But we even drilled down even more specific, working with the first responders. So in case of, God forbid, anything ever happened, that we would be in cohesion and collaborating and working for the safety of our staff and students. Ms. Morsack and her team did an unbelievable job. She actually opened up her purse, which is a lot bigger than my purse in a lot of cases. But we upgraded all our security cameras on all of our campuses. We have access controls as well as telephones in each of our classrooms. So a lot of things that came through that her department that actually increased our security on our campuses. Also, the implementation of the anonymous alert system, which has been very, very beneficial. As you can recall, this actually is an anonymous reporting system, not just for bullying, which a lot of people think it is, but it's actually incidents that we actually got ahead of several things that potentially could have been harmful to other students or to our district. And so this has been proved very, very beneficial to us. Threat assessment management system is back when Senate Bill 11 came out, it really mandated that all school districts have a threat assessment tool. And we were actually a little bit ahead of the game. We were already working on one, didn't know Senate Bill 11 was going to be that impactful. But we have been using that now for a couple of years and is really working with the needs of our students. Someone who has been identified to go into the system. It is literally a accountability of where they're actually checked every 2 weeks for progress, and allows us to put things in from a district standpoint or from a student support counselor standpoint, but a lot of different things that they need to actually heal or to restore them back into our regular environment. Our student support counselors, as I mentioned, it was a big hire for us. We had those stationed at our secondary campuses, but again, in the normal role of a counselor, what you consider the counselor of a high school, a lot of this allows them to spend a lot more time one-on-one with our students. Smart Tag ID system, which we implemented this year for our buses, has been really, really good because now our bus drivers know exactly who is supposed to be on that bus. When a kid scans off, they know where they're supposed to get off. And so we had some kinks to work out, but I think it's been smoother every single day. So I'm really proud of that, what Mickey Crone and the Transportation Department has done in implementing that. And last but not least is that one of the things that came out of a commendation that Craig Miller and his group had mentioned to us is that every campus they went on is that people were friendly, students were friendly, and he said it really can tell the culture of your campuses how this program, because Craig had never really heard about it before coming from Dallas ISD, but he says you can really see the impact that that's having on your campus. So one of his recommendations was for us to continue with capturing kids' hearts, to make sure, because it was having making a difference on our campuses. A couple other things that he mentioned out that I thought was prevalent that I want to bring to your attention. Stacy Brown did not encourage him to do this first one, but full-time emergency management position. But actually, I've got as we grow, there's going to be a need for somebody that focuses on that. But in the meantime, until we get to that point where the board feels that that's a position that we want to add, we have some ideas about how to, actually, I've been meeting with Chief Sanders, and we've got a couple of officers in our department that really have a strong passion for security and safety management, the EOP, the Emergency Operation Plan, part of it. And so we're going to work on trying to transition that over into his department. It's a better fit, and it'll be a cleaner kind of transition for that to happen. So we're working on that proposal. And then also another one that he brought out that I kind of visited with Kim about today was for our front office staff to have access to camera surveillance there to monitor the exterior of our buildings. Actually, she shared with me today, which I wasn't aware of, that we have board policy that says only administrators do. So we're going to look at that as well, maybe bringing that to you in the near future. So any questions you have about the audit? We have already submitted that to the Texas School Safety Center, and we are on time and timely. Any questions?
Questions, comments? Dr. Terry?
No, I just got to commend Rick and Kim and all, and Chief. It's nice to have Chief Miller still as a presence here, and I know he's helped us implement our police department, but he continues to be a presence as we can work forward to improve safety at every campus. And happy to say that we did something this year for every single campus to improve that from a facility standpoint and continue that as a focus.
I failed to mention some of the stuff that we did on exterior of North Forney that really helped with bus loop and also with the perimeter fencing. And so there's been, like Dr. Terry mentioned, there's something that happened on every campus that actually made an impact on safety. So I appreciate you bringing that up. But yeah, Craig's, he obviously he was instrumental in helping me hire Chief Sanders, which has been a great hire. What he's already done in a short amount of time has been outstanding. But Craig is really one of those guys that he's there as a resource. I can pick up the phone and call him. He's very in touch with the Texas School Safety Center. He's working with TASA. He's working with Huckabee as a kind of a resource advisor for them. So he has his hands in a lot of pies for sure. But he's a great resource for sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gear, and Sheriff, thanks to Chief Miller. And then Chief Sanders, thank you for getting us off this year on such a great, smooth start in your new department and what all y'all do for us every day. So appreciate that. We're moving on then to item 9, consent agenda. 9A is approved minutes from the October 5th meeting. 9B, approved the budget amendment. 9C, approved the purchasing cooperative group there, as you see listed. We can take these separately or collectively. Do I have a motion from the board?
President Ferris, make a motion we approve the consent agenda collectively.
I have a motion for collectively from Mr. Andrews. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Carroll, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And I hear none. Moving on into item 10, consideration of possible approval of construction bids for roads in Jackson. Ms. Kim Borzak will present at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Ferris. I'm actually going to ask Jeff Fisher from Gallagher Construction to come forward and present these bids to the board.
Hello again. As you may recall, back when the Jackson Roads project was originally bid back in February and March, we had a few packages on the budget total sheet that we deferred to a later date to help with some of the cash flow on the project. So it's come time now to go on to the next package. This package actually deals with the outdoor athletic type work, so it's a synthetic turf and track, the bleachers, the athletic lighting for the field and track, and the outdoor scoreboard. So you'll see we have those 4 items listed there. The total package is $2,614,625. And I do want to mention that based on the budgets that we carried on the original total sheet, the total of those 4 packages is $185,375 budget. So those numbers came in pretty much where we were expecting, but a little bit better. So. Any questions on that?
I have one. The bleachers, what what is that 193,005? Is that equivalent to Brown or just, or about the time?
Yeah, it's equivalent to Brown, plus a little bit bigger press box. Just a little.
Didn't take a lot for that.
Right. So, yes, sir, seating
Now
wise.
we have two-seater.
Two-seater.
Yeah, it's a two-seater instead of one.
Yes, and I'm assuming that the scoreboard, that's not a Citibank Stadium?
No, sir, it's not. It's more of a middle school size scoreboard, sure.
Thanks, Jim.
No digital display or anything.
Any other questions from the board? Dr. Terry, what's your recommendation?
Oh, I gotta collect myself, I apologize. Just wanna say a couple things real quick, if that's okay, is, first off, this is an opportunity for us to now have a third, turf field, and, next year, what we'll transition to is to rotate between our three, fields, is really what we're looking at from a game perspective. So I'm pretty excited about that, to keep our kids playing on good, safe surfaces. And just want to compliment Gallagher Construction again. By the way, we've structured our bid packages. You'll see again that we're under budget as well for the third time. And remember this, we've had pretty substantial savings by approaching it this way. So just wanted to compliment Jeff and his team, and recommend that you approve the bid package number 3 for roads in Jackson.
Thank you, Dr. Terry, and we do all, as a board, appreciate your working so diligently to help us with our budget. Do I have a motion from the board?
President Ferris, I make a motion to approve the construction bids for the Roads Jackson project package number 3.
Thank you, Ms. Regan. Do I have a second? Ms. Dobbs, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Then I hear none. We'll move on into item 11, consider possible approval of construction projects in the budget. Mr. Chase.
Thank you, Mr. Ferris. As Ms. Morsack kind of explained earlier, when she was doing her master plan update, we've got these projects that we had to start design on, and we're now ready to move forward, set the project budgets, and eventually, I think next month, we're planning on coming back and maybe doing another parameter order, adding the capacity for us to issue the bonds as you see here. But just to start with, we approved the design for Rowlett Johnson, the high school expansion in prior board meetings, and so we've got the design pretty well set, or getting close to it, and they're going to need to get the budget set so we can start to bid these projects and get going with the construction on them. So right now, the estimated budget for Rowlett and Johnson is $34.6 million each, and that's down substantially. I think when we were originally looking at this, it was around, going to be around $43 million for each one of these projects, and so I think the construction costs have mitigated a little bit, along with interest rates now are down, so it's a great time to borrow money. And these projects, we had already been planning internally to do these issues coming up. I think on our debt master plan with Christian, when we looked at this, we were already planning on issuing $106 million in January. Now that 106 is 71, I think, million to finish up the projects for Griffin and Jackson roads. And then the other part of that 106 would be to start these projects and get the cash flow necessary to get these off and running, and then the remainder of those bonds that will be issued the following August to wrap these projects up. And so would say just as Kim mentioned, these projects are going to be kind of split between the capital project fund, which the Rowlett Johnson high school expansions were planned through the bond committee to come through those bond funds, and that's where those will be paid for. The aquatic training facility, we're planning on taking that out of the fund balance of the general fund. And as you heard last month when we had our audit report, we're sitting on about, I think it was a little, just right over 40.7, almost $41 million in unassigned fund balance. The 3 months of operating expenses is somewhere in the 27 million range, so we've got about a $13 million cushion. Taking 5 out of that would still leave us a little bit of cushion in there to take care of any future needs for debt service or whatever that might come with maybe a short-term slower growth than what we were projecting. So We feel really good where we're at right now with our capital projects, and the other part of this too is it's $99.2 million for those 3 projects that you see up there that's not coming out of the general fund. We feel like with the savings that we had projected, with those $43 million projections for Willett and Johnson, we can actually, that high school expansion really net difference as far as bond proceeds, we probably only need maybe about $10 million, and that may be whittled down some as we get through these other projects, and if the contingencies work out right, it may be a zero-sum game on that high school expansion when it's all said and done. But comfortably, we feel like it would only take an additional 10 as far as asking for additional bonding capacity on the parameter order, because we can get the other $20 million out of the savings that we had originally projected for Willett and Johnson. So again, we feel really good there. When we were working with Christian on modeling this debt service, we were looking at I believe 5% growth basically year over year from this point forward. And so every year we feel like we can make the debt service work on this. Again, it would be structured just like the last couple of deals where it would be interest only for the first 10 years and then principal and interest after that. But as you know, we've been doing that for the last couple of years with these last bond issues, but we've had additional capacity, and we've been taking that additional capacity, and even though we're not paying principal on these issues that we're issuing right now, we're taking that opportunity to go out and do early redemptions on bonds that are callable. So in effect, we are paying principal in these early years, and we would suggest continuing to do that same model, the same approach to our debt service schedule. Because if it turns out we grow a little slower, we might not be able to call as much in any given year. But if it's better than expected, then we can call more. And so it's just a really good way, I think, right now where we're at with that 50-cent tax cap to manage our debt service and still keep up with the buildings that we need to put on the ground to accommodate the student growth that we have. So that's kind of where we're at. These are the budgets for these projects for Willett Johnson, the athletic expansion and the aquatic training facility. Our recommendation is that you would approve these projects and the budgets that are set here. And again, we'll come back to you next month and probably have a parameter order that would add this additional amount to the $71 million that we still have outstanding on the other parameter order, so we can finish these projects out. So if there's any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Chase. Dr. Terry, do you have any comments?
John did a great job of presenting this, but I think you see that, as we have some savings, we're able to pick up a few other projects, and that's kind of how we're continuing to just manage this, and that we do believe that $30 million on the athletic expansions has been majority absorbed through savings, but also, the $10 million that we are looking at through contingencies, we could fund that, as he said, down to a net zero or minimal at most. So just to reiterate that, we continue to kind of keep within the budget, but be able to take care of a few projects that have been recommended by committee. The last one there, I never thought I'd be able to come and recommend this, to be honest with you, but we have looked at, because I know that there has been a need for training facilities for our swimmers in Forney for a long time, and we looked at many natatoriums and the tens of millions of dollars worth of facilities with operating costs upward of $800,000 to $1 million. This new approach that we discovered has really been a blessing, and pretty excited about being able to bring this opportunity to Forney, and even more excited to be able to take this out with cash. And so this is separate of the bond, just to reiterate that as well. We do have some capital improvement budget dollars that you'll recall that we can utilize as part of that $5 million, as well as some excess fund balance, as John referenced. So feel very comfortable about where we are financially. Just want to commend the board to be able to even have these discussions. You've done a great job of managing our budget, and appreciate where we're headed, and happy to recommend these projects for our kids and the budgets that go along with them.
Thank you very much. You've heard from Mr. Chase. Dr. Terry, do I have a motion?
Mr. Ferris, I make a motion to approve the construction projects and budget as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Carroll. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Andrews, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And I hear none. Moving on then, Mr. Chase, we continue with the consideration and possible approval of the CT Brandon Corporation, DBA, the Brandon Corporation, as a prime design professional for a new construction project and authorize the superintendent to negotiate a contract.
So we just approved the aquatic training facility project. And in doing so, we also need a design and engineer assigned to the project. And so we received qualifications from the CT Brandon Corporation. Those were included in your board packet for review. They've got quite a bit of experience designing these types of facilities, not just a training facility like ours, but full range of different type of aquatic facilities. And so after reviewing their qualifications and talking to them direct, we feel like that this is the prime design professional company that we would like to assign to this aquatic training facility that we have. So our recommendation would be to approve CT Brandon Corporation as a prime design professional for the aquatic training facility.
Thank you, Mr. Chase. Are there any further questions from the board?
President Ferris, I have just a quick question. In the Brandon's scope of services that they provided, they listed some exclusions that would need to be included in the project. Is that something that'd be provided by Gallagher, am I assuming?
So, I think a lot of times, like maybe civil and some stuff like that, so it's, whenever we have a contract with Huckabee, those exclusions exist with them too. And we pay civil engineering on top of the design fees as well, so it's very similar.
Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Andrews, just, obviously we wanted to go after somebody who had a real qualification in pool design. The civil is going to be very minimal, because what we're looking at is a lot of shared parking spaces and things like that. So probably go ahead and continue to use ROK, our current civil, to design the small civil that we do
We're
have.
not changing our approach at all, it's just Brandon versus Huckabee for this facility.
We still run a CMA and through Gallagher that they manage the project. Yes, sir.
Any further questions? Dr. Terry, do you have any other comments?
No, we've already met a little bit with the Brandon Corporation, and they've had a great track record, I think, as you saw from a qualifying standpoint. So we recommend that we do engage them, qualify them for our design services. Again, the majority of what we're focusing on is the pool, not necessarily the building. So they've got a great track record working with many districts throughout the Metroplex already.
Thank you. You've heard Mr. Chase and Dr. Terry. Do I have a motion from the board?
President Ferris, I make a motion that the board select the CT Brandon Corporation doing business as the Brandon Corporation in accordance with Texas Government Code Chapter 2254 as the most competent and qualified engineers to perform design, construction, and administrative services in conjunction with an architect firm hired by the CT Brandon Corporation for a new construction project, and authorize superintendent to negotiate a contract with CT Brandon Corporation.
Thank you, Mr. Regan. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Carroll, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And I hear none. Item 13, closed session, we will skip that tonight. We'll move on then to item 14, consideration of possible approval of professional contract personnel as discussed earlier. And you have the packet there. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Ms. Dodds. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Andrews? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I hear none. It is announcements looking forward. Our next meeting will be November 17th at 6 p.m. for a special call board meeting. And then we have Thanksgiving break. And then December is the next regular scheduled board meeting. So just watch our emails in case something has to change, these upcoming meetings. It is now 9:03, and we will call this meeting adjourned.